Get ready, guys. Today we've got Chris Nolan, a three-time Emmy Award-winning film director, strategic consultant who has shaped giants like Disney and Google. His future is phenomenal, and he has rubbed elbows with the greats like Bob Iger, Bill Gates, Martin Scorsese, and now he's here to show how to flip uncertainty into opportunity with his VUCA Max brilliance. Chris just isn't a thought leader, he creates worlds. His award-winning studio is 90,000 square feet, and he's been shaking up cons and sparking movements like films like Look Up, Climate of Hope. Oh, did I mention he has a best-selling author featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, and NRP? If you think about leadership as playing safe, buckle up because Chris is about to flip the script on how to lead, tell stories, and thrive when things get wild. So let's dive in and welcome Chris Nolan.
Welcome to Power Your Profits podcast, your friendly guide in bringing your business revenue to the next level. Listen as host Dr. Susie Carder hears inspiring stories of success from her fellow entrepreneurs and transformational leaders. Prepare to make significant change to your strategies as they unravel the secrets of building multi-million-dollar businesses and the most effective tips on finance, marketing, and sales accountability. If you want to take your first steps towards explosive business growth, this podcast is for you. Without further ado, here is your host, Dr. Susie.
Chris, they have no idea what they're in store for. Let me just say that right now, because this man is a giant in the industry and he's one of the most humble men, right? You heard his bio, but really, Chris, you've worked with other giants like Disney, Google, Martin Scorsese. what, what is your secret to building power player partnerships? Because you you have a way of creating these relationships, like you're talking to some of the most famous people in the world and you're so humble about it. So what's your secret to building those?
Well, every time I work with somebody, whether it's a company, if it's Google or Disney or Scorsese or any of these people, remember my background as a director, I've got 3 Emmys. And so my background is always storytelling. So it's very easy when you work with somebody, you're just dealing with their story. It's something that we do in our program, VUCA Max, where we have a lot of it's based on the hero's journey. It's based on going from, where the status quo was to what your goal is. It's kind of what you do. But when you put something into a story, it make people really, it's how people are evolutionary wise, how we are programmed to think. So when I work with Disney, for instance, when we work with Disney or when I even work with Iger, who's the CEO, we're dealing with usually a change story. So you have something within Disney, and in this case, it's kind of a fun one. We had the characters, for instance, I'll give you an example. We're dealing with the characters of, the people that play, Peter Pan and Tinkerbell and Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. At the time, Disney wanted to celebrate them. So we were looking for change stories. So it's very easy when you're dealing with a company and they're saying, okay, this is what the goal is. We need a story here. And so what we did is we went in and we found stories of the particular story that ended up being featured on Star Wars. We do content. Of course, we're a film production studio. And we found a story of a little girl who wanted to go to Disneyland but was afraid to because she was deaf. And she didn't want to go see her favorite characters. And then they say, what's your name? And she just stares at them. Well, right. The story we found was when she went to see Tinkerbell. She went in there and Tinkerbell understood, because I think she has a lot of kids that come see her, that she was deaf, and Tinkerbell signed to her. And the way we found it it was a YouTube video. She turned to her mother and she had the most huge, expression of joy in her face. So that's a great story. So it's easy to work with a company when you're doing great storytelling for them. And it was the same with Google. Well, they had what were API engineers. So API engineers were at the time nerds, right? It's a geek world, but we feature them as spies, in spy thrillers. They were the heroes of these thrillers, and the heroes were women. And as you know, in tech, women are like, they're incredible, but they're not that many of them. They're like 10%.
Right.
So we featured two 10-minute thrillers where the heroes of the movies were women. They were the Born Identity, and yet they were API engineers too. So once again,
Right.
it's a change story for Google where we're celebrating their customers and we're celebrating the internal API engineers. Now Scorsese was the same thing. I did that with the DGA and the WGA, and it was basically about director and writer's rights, their IP. So when we interviewed him, once again, it's a story. So my relationship with these big CEOs, whether it's Bill Gates or or whether it's Bob Iger, is always with story. So that kind of just cuts through all the
Muck, right? All the pretentiousness, all the ego.
it does. When you get to somebody's story, you probably see it. When you get to somebody's story about a brand, you're in there with them.
Yeah.
There's not much more discussion about it. This is where we need to go.
Right. Okay. So you dropped it like it was a hot potato, and then you moved on. So I'm going to go back to it because I need people to really understand. You've got 3 Emmy Awards, 3, right?
Yeah.
What did you win them for? Kind of tell me about that journey because that's pretty impressive in its own right.
Well, a lot of them were for they give Emmys for branding, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
these were not TV shows. These were mostly advertising. And one of the proudest ones I think I got was for a campaign that celebrated, in particular, the campaign I got, it was for athletes that had started in sports before African Americans were accepted, right? Especially
Yeah.
like football. And how they transformed the game. How when the team, like there was one where the team was 1-10. The next year, after the athlete who I don't want to mention his name, but he went with the team, and he was turned down by many top 20 teams. So he went with this one team, and of course they went to the Rose Bowl the next year. He was the precursor to OJ really. But
Right.
that particular campaign, which was about diversity, was a big Emmy Award winner for me, and I won them for mostly that kind of stuff. It's the same as the Humanitas Awards, which is for a movie. A Humanitas Award is one of my proudest awards. That's given for meaning in film, and that particular movie was about it's a crazy story. So when I was in high school, I played sports, and I was pretty good in intramural and wrestling, right? I didn't really want to wrestle, but they said I was pretty good. So I went to a wrestling camp, which was horrible. It's getting up at 5 o'clock and wrestling people, and I just hated it. But the one
Right.
thing that happened was that I saw that there was one wrestler who was blind. And in wrestling, the only thing in NCAA, the only sport that the blind can participate in is wrestling. So I think it was 30 years later, I'm going and pitching to Disney on different movies. And so they said, we're looking for a wrestling movie. And so I said, there's only one sport
Got a movie for you.
that the blind can wrestle in, and that's wrestling. And we had a deal in 20 minutes.
That is awesome.
So,
So talk about how, like, I'm a believer because winning these prestigious awards, what does it do for your business? Because now you're on the consulting side, right? You've created some huge projects over there, which we're going to talk about VUCA Max, which is, how I met you.
right.
So let's talk about that. Going from being an Emmy Award winning and now to business consulting, how does that play a part in your credibility? How do you leverage that?
Well, it's actually a natural progression, really. If you think about it, if you're a director, you're a coach.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've taken a lot of acting, directing type seminars. I went to film school. I took some directing, coaching type things that were, actor director workshops with Milton Gonzalez, who's a big, was at one time a big coach in Los Angeles. So, when I'm dealing with actors, that's coaching.
Right.
And when I'm dealing with crews, that's coaching. In fact, interestingly enough, we have this AI course.
Yes.
It's we we'll talk about this. I'm sure you're going to talk about the rise of humanists. We actually have a humanist prompt, which is different than your usual prompts, which we call the Hollywood prompt, which is how you deal with an AI like your director. And it's really interesting because you really keep you want to keep coaxing, you want to keep iterating. And here's the interesting thing: the only thing is that it's a machine, so you can be, can be a little direct, right?
Yeah.
And so you can criticize it. You can say you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing this. So it's a natural progression. The coaching program, and I'm sure you're going to ask how VUCA Max, the movie, or how VUCA, the movie became VUCA Max. And we'll talk to you about how that morphed into coaching, a coaching program. By the way, this may be a segue for another one of your questions, is that the way that I got into VUCA, the way I got into, or that I learned about VUCA, was that I did courses with clients. For instance, Google came to me to do a course with Anderson School of Business. I worked a lot with UCLA. It was a big client of mine. I did athletic department. I did Anderson School of Business. But they wanted me to do a 12-part series on, I think it was called Marketing Rebranded or something like that, Marketing Rethought. But we had all of Google's high-level people. People came in from Turkey and Europe and everywhere. All their high-level people that ran, YouTube, their CMO, all of these people, and they all were talking about VUCA.
Right.
What happened was that back when Google was a humble search engine, they got a guy named David Peterson who came in and started talking to them about VUCA. VUCA is a military term, stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. There's a positive side. Bob Johansen at Institute for the Future came up with it. It's vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. So this is a concept that you have in a disruptive environment, which we'll probably get to why we did the movie on this.
Right.
So in a disruptive environment, what you need, Susie, is a offensive mindset, but not just a it's a moonshot mindset. And if you look at the companies that have succeeded, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they have had massive moonshot offensive mindsets, that Jim Collins stuff, right?
Yes.
So I learned this term and I thought it was like VUCA. It sounded like something out of Star Trek, right? Like
Right.
the Vulcans, but the idea was it stuck in my head because it was about how to combat disruption, massive disruption. So I guess that could lead in, if you want to talk about how the movie came about now, if you want me to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So is that what really propelled your interest in the movie VUCA?
Well, what happened was Mike Schindler, my partner, and I were working on a documentary for veterans. He has a veteran podcast and has a great veteran nonprofit, Operation Military Family. So we were working on a great veteran project. And of course, that fell apart during COVID. Nobody wanted a film crew in their office, right, or in their home. So that completely went away. But at the time I said, you know what? This is a perfect time for a documentary about massive disruption and VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. He went, what's that? He hadn't even heard of it. And he was in the military. I said it was a military concept. Came up during the Iraq War because of disruption. Again, the military found themselves in a technological world where the insurgents had computers and they had cell phones and they had satellites and they were evading. This is why we've had problems winning wars. This is what VUCA can do. So anyway, we got through that and we found that there were a lot of generals that said yes to this, a lot of thought leaders. And once again, in VUCA, remember I said offensive mindset? In the VUCA world, you need to be more resourceful. You need to have those, and there's a lot more to it, but I'll make it along those lines. More adaptable, more of a growth mindset. Fixed mindsets don't work. So we had to come up with ways to shoot remotely. In other words, remember we shot you?
Yeah.
And I was with the camera. I had a link where I was talking to you. Susie, everybody should know, was
I'm
fabulous.
talking to the producer that was working with me. So you were
Exactly.
coaching him, he was coaching me. It worked. It was awesome.
It was terrific, and you were great. I mean, and it's remarkable how people were so responsive to it. I mean, it's like I think I was on Zoom, and then we were on Facebook at the same time, and you were taking direction remotely, and it was crazy, Susie. That hadn't been done. We were
Right.
we were the pioneers in that. So anyway, so that is how the movie came about. There's more to it, obviously, than that. And um, Mike found himself, sometimes on airports, in airports all by himself, and in crazy locations. I mean, just the shooting of that was just wild. But I don't know if I answered the question perfectly, but I think we got to
I
it.
think we got it, right?
I think we
But
circled back somehow.
so let's talk about what your goal is with VUCA Max right now. So what's yours and Mike's bigger vision with it? And how do we play, right? So I know, I'm in the movie talking about how I use it in my business, but what's your guys' bigger vision of it?
Well, first of all, let's understand what VUCA Max is.
Okay.
So when we did the movie, 2021, I think it was, we did the movie and we were in the COVID world, and the retail, by the way, look at the things that happened. Retail went away,
Yeah.
remote work happened. So it was a very disruptive time. But has it stopped? Do
No.
we have do we have less polarization? Do we have Now we have AI, and we can talk about that. I mean, what people don't realize about that is that we're only at the very tip of the iceberg of AI right now. And we already think it's amazing, right? I mean, all the shiny new objects. But anyway, so VUCA Max. So what happened when we did the movie, it was people loved it, and it's so inspiring. It really helped you understand the environment that we live in. Okay, we're in this thing called VUCA right now. It's not going away, and it's only intensifying. And that's the important part. So why is it intensifying? It's because what happened in 2020, Ray Kurzweil is one of the top, I think he's the top futurist in the world. He's the head of AI engineering at Google. He's been 87 or 90% right about everything he's predicted. So he's predicted that we are now what's called the exponential curve. What that means is for 100,000 years, we thought linearly. 30 feet was 30 feet, right, Susie? I mean, you see a saber-toothed tiger 30 feet away, you know whether to run or to hide. Now we live in a digital age. We live in an exponential age. So steps are now exponential. What that means is that digital doubles every 18 months. So it goes 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, right? So in 2020, we hit this exponential curve. Right now, we're about 16. 30 steps exponentially is 1,000,000 steps. So in 30 years, 2050, give an example, this may blow your mind. We'll have 1,000,000 times the change right now. You won't really see it because it'll be converging, right? I mean, we have all the technologies converging now because it's large language models. So you'll say, well, maybe if you're living, you might not say it's 1,000,000, but people will be living to be 120 years old, right? AI will have, super intelligent. There may be the singularity. Probably, they're predicting also within the next 10 years, it won't be AI that's disrupting us, but robotics. So
Right.
robots are coming. And
Yes.
unfortunately, you probably had a question along those lines. We'll tackle that one.
You're listening to another episode of Power Your Profits podcast. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Are you tired of struggling to take your business to the next level? Power Your Profits is the game-changing book you've been waiting for. Dr. Susie Carder, creator of the Predictable Success Method, reveals her proven strategies for explosive growth. From daily operations to marketing systems, this comprehensive guide empowers you to achieve predictable revenue and profit growth. Don't miss out on this invaluable wisdom. Transform your business today. Find your copy at books.poweryourprofits.com. Overwhelmed by the complexity of business profit strategies? Jump aboard the Bullet Train to Big Profits course, a streamlined solution by Dr. Susie Carder. This course is designed to uncomplicate the path to profitability. Imagine being able to identify and execute profit strategies with ease, skyrocketing your revenues. Visit course.poweryourprofits.com and sign up for the Bullet Train to Big Profits course today.
Right. So that's where the rise of humanists came in, right? Let's talk about expanding the human value in the AI-driven world, because I think a lot of people are afraid of it because they think their job's going to be obsolete. So what do leaders need to do? What do we need to do as business owners to stay ahead of that curve?
Okay, so we've talked about this. We've said AI is right now the tip of the iceberg. We're just seeing, I mean, literally in a year, we've seen incredible progress. Video now, video can now do stuff that it could never do with AI. We do content with video all the time. For instance, Runway just came out with something where you can just record yourself talking. Boom, you can put yourself into a Pixar curtain. It's insane, Pixar. I mean, you think, what?
Right.
So the rise of humanists, this came out of two things, really. One, VUCA Max, and also the fact that I'm part of a group called the Good Future Project.
Yeah.
And what that is it's futurists around the world that are about rebranding the future in a good way, in a positive way, what's called protopia. So in other words, there's dystopia, there's utopia, and there's protopia. And this is basically the idea that things get better incrementally. So it's that thought process. And the idea with it is that you have to, but there's a responsibility to this too, which means that the rise of humanists is about understanding that in the age of AI, to expand our humanness, we have to expand our soft skills.
Yes.
Which you've seen everywhere, which we're not doing in education enough. We're not doing in companies enough. And so, they're automating, they're getting all these tools in here, but they're really not expanding people's soft skills. And they're going to be different. They're going to change. I mean, they're going to be intuition, more innovation, more creativity, more wisdom. Those kinds of skills were going to be more valued in the future. And we need to expand that in the age of AI and make people understand how they fit. Because as I just mentioned, even with robotics, the first thing robotics is going to go after are all the jobs that are like,
Repetitive.
Yeah, they're labor jobs and stuff like that. So it's going to be a rethinking of how do we empower humans and expand humans in business, across the board.
Right. So what do you see as the biggest opportunities and dangers of AI right now?
The biggest opportunities are here already. I mean, my gosh, if you use ChatGPT or use any of the hubs, anything, I mean, it's amazing. I'm not quite as far as Deepak Chopra, who calls it a miracle, right? But I do think that it's actually incredible if you use it. One thing we say in our AI course is that make sure that AI adapts to you and you don't adapt to AI.
Yes.
The idea with all this is that, and there's ways to do this, is you really want to understand that. And I could give you a couple AI tips here as we talk about the greatest opportunities. So the greatest opportunities is knowing how to use AI. One of the things that people don't understand about AI is that, I did a documentary on AI, so I became an expert on it, co-wrote it too.
Yeah.
So one of the things they don't understand with the large language model, it's trained on human knowledge. So you have to know that it's trained on human knowledge. But when you use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or any of the large language models, you have to understand that to get to the emotional stuff, to get to the heart stuff, to get to the soul stuff, either which is there.
Yes.
You have to go beyond just a simple prompt. Just a simple prompt. I'll give you a tip here. For instance, you can do it, for instance, with, we do marketing stuff and branding stuff. That's pretty good because it just scrapes through great marketing plans or McKinsey plans or whatever, and you can get dynamite stuff. But if you're really looking for stuff like emails, to connect and engage with your audience. You want to include anecdotes. You want to include your stories. You want to make it personal. You really have to go one step further and have compound prompts. But here's the trick. So when ChatGPT gives you back a response, ask it to grade itself. Remember I talked about the Hollywood
Yeah.
prompt? So that's critical. You're criticizing. You say on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think, and let's say whatever the prompt is in humanization or in emotion, where do you think this falls? A lot of times it'll come back a 4.
Right.
And you say, okay, give me a 9, give me a 10. So that's knowing how to use AI. The consequences, we don't know yet. I mean, in the film, we say things could go very good or things could go very bad. And a lot of it, though, depends on your mindset. Once again, are you going to be one of the have AIs or have nots? You don't want to be a have not.
Right.
Because I think Peter Diamandis just said this, there'll be 2 types of companies that exist in the next 10 years, 5 years, those that use AI and those that are out of business.
Yes. That's pretty cut and dry. I did use that after we spoke. So Chris and I spoke earlier in the week on another project, and I used it, and it scored itself an 8. And I said, well, what would be a 10? And why are you holding back on me?
Did you really?
Yeah. And then it gave me back a 10, and said, okay, this is, and then I wrote back, this is the caliber I want to see from you from now on. Right. I'm using it and speaking to it. Like it knows my sass, my personality. Right. I'll put something in. I said, I need more sass and energetic. Come on, it's Dr. Susie. And then it immediately goes into, oh, right, I know your sass, right? And pulls my clips, my little, so just, I'm a believer in just play, right?
Oh, yeah.
What's out there and how can I play? What's out there and how can I play? I think we get so caught up in the rules and I got to do it right. But with AI, there is no right now. It's all in discovery.
It's so true. I mean, there's a great meme. I won't use the actual meme, but I'll tell you it's Samuel Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's FAFO, right? And I won't say what it is, but it's basically, I'll just paraphrase it. Fool around and find out.
Yes. Right. And that's what's been fun is to go, oh, I had a client who was supposed to do these videos for me, Chris, and he was horrible, like horrible. So I found an AI that could do his webinar for him. I wrote the script. I made it kind of look like him. He was an Indian man. So I found an Indian man, kind of someone that had his voice. And what a game changer. Because I literally had this man record a video 10 times. I'm like, he just sucks. I can't. No one's going to sign up, and then it's going to look like I'm a failure because you suck.
And the avatar worked great, huh?
The avatar worked great. It was 1,000 times better than he was, right? For someone who's good on camera, like I'm comfortable, I'm good on camera, but for someone who's not, right? There's now the tools that we have as a coach. I can help someone 10 times more than I'd have to now go put him in a class, and he'd have to now spend years crafting this, learning how to be in front of a camera, and it was a game changer. So what was taking us weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, I did it in 2 hours. And so I said back,
you saved him anxiety.
Exactly. And go, okay, now here's your AI guy, right? And he's like, well, is it authentic? I'm like, yes, it's authentic. We just want to get you in front of the right customer, and we can't do it if they look at you and go, oh, if they can't even stand to listen to you.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's just fabulous.
Well, I'll give you another tip. I'll give you a filmmaker tip.
Yes, filmmaker tip.
Filmmaker tip. So when you're working with AI and avatars, anything visual, people don't realize this. I say sound is 60% of a video or of a film. The sound effects, the emotion and voices, all that. If you actually have him record on his phone, what he's going to say, and then you drag that into Hey Jen or Synthesia, right? Watch the difference.
Oh, okay. Synthesia is the one I use.
Yeah, the emotion is there all of a sudden, and the pauses and everything like that.
And he's pretty bad at that too, though. He was pretty bad at the voice too.
Oh, the voice was bad too. Oh, okay. Well, maybe
some people have it. That's the it thing that you talk about in your industry. The it factor. I was like, okay, he don't have it. Not that he can't develop it, but it does take practice and
Coming. That's the next generation of Hey Gen. Have you seen the
right.
Hey Gen, the third, it's Hey Gen 3, where they have side views now. They have like interview style, like you're in the
Oh no,
yeah, and
that's
it's in environments. Yeah, it's very interesting. Have you used the podcast which is called Google? It's fabulous. Can't remember the name of it now. But it's the I almost said Notion. It's not Notion, but it's basically it creates a podcast for you.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that one. How fun is that?
Just Google and say Google creates a podcast for you. It'll come up. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
You know
Okay,
what? And by the way, you can just put your website in and it'll scrape your website and create a podcast.
see now look at that time saving technique, right? Which is what you know, and what you do with what you know. That's all that
Oh,
matters.
time saving. That's one of the big opportunities with AI is how much time it saves.
So much time, just time and procrastinating. I had to write a couple. Doing this event next March, to Fortune 500 companies, and really wanting the topic. It's like she moments. You got an 8-minute talk, and aggregated all my content and said, this is what you need to talk about. I'm like, oh my God, that is what I need to talk about. Where I was kind of ham-hawing, like, I got to put this together. What am I going to talk about? Boom. Like, why am I procrastinating? It's so silly. Like,
Yeah.
just learn to play.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing about it is it's an incredible motivator. I mean, just how first drafts or whatever thing like that. It's terrific that way. Yeah.
Right. So let's looking back at your epic career, Chris, because it's an epic one. What legacy that you're building? How do you want to work to make this next impact? Because now I must say we are in our legacy years,
Okay.
right? In creating the next generation of change makers. What's really next for you?
Well, I've actually transitioned, I mean, to more of this. VUCA Max is part of that. Even the first documentary, it's VUCA, The Secrets of Living in the 21st Century. Then we did Look Up Now, the future of technology, artificial intelligence and humanity, and Climate of Hope, Cities Saving the World. All of those are, I would say, legacy-like films, that we're doing more documentaries like that. And they are all about empowering or creating stories primarily for the next generation of 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 of, of kids that are completely lost. I mean, we did, like I mentioned, the Good Future Project. I think there's some kind of a stat on this. It's crazy that 70% of people under 40 fear the future,
Mm.
and um, we actually have a program we talked about rebranding the future, where we're doing something where we're trying to create stories that are positive protopia stories. So I think my legacy really is to, through my storytelling, connect to more and more people to make them see that there is a possibility of a good future, because a lot of people are feeling very lost, and there's more, like I said, there's more and more and more uncertainty, which gets us back to VUCA Max program, which is about things like conscious leadership. Okay,
Yeah.
conscious leadership, because 95% of us, we don't realize this, are a set of pre-programmed beliefs, behaviors, and habits. And we really have to understand that in a VUCA environment, we have to become much more aware of where we are, much more conscious. Leaders too. Leaders
Right.
become much more aware. We also need something called anti-fragile resilience. Now, people, and what happens in uncertainty, in stress and anxiety and overwhelm, you get very fragile. You can break real easy, or you try to be resilient, but it doesn't work in a VUCA environment because things happen too fast. You can't just bounce back like a tennis ball, because like a company, they could be out of business.
Right.
So they have to actually embrace change. So some of the stuff that we're talking about, where with all the documentaries, especially it's VUCA, City Saving the World, all of these documentaries are really about that offensive mindset, empowering people to have an offensive mindset that they can change things. For instance, Climate of Hope is about how we have the technology today to mitigate 80% of greenhouse gases. Are we doing it? No.
Right.
Once again, we need to have an offensive mindset, whether it's at a city level or civic level, whatever that is. So that's my legacy, really, to use my storytelling to change minds, to create change stories.
Now, if someone wanted to reach out to you, Chris, how do they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about VUCA, if they want to learn about VUCA Max, if they want to learn, can I become a trainer? How do I get to play with this fabulous man? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, the website, it's VUCAMax.com. It's VUCAMAX.com. And you can go there. You can learn about our courses. You can learn about our AI course. We have several different types of courses there. And I think we also said we've got a giveaway we've got for them on that
Yes.
that website we can give you.
I'll put that in the show notes. Do you want to talk about what that is?
Yeah, I think we'll do. Yeah, we have a giveaway which is called the VUCA Warrior workbook, VUCA Max Warrior workbook. We have a giveaway called the VUCA Max Warrior workbook, and that takes you from the very beginning of where you want to be. Like you get clarity about who you are, all the way through to a lot of our tools: anti-fragile resilience, conscious leadership. A little bit about. We didn't talk very much about the VUCA Max line. It's a very simple tool, basically, where you find out: am I below the line? Am I in a victim mode or am I creator mode? And this is moment to moment where you are. It's actually a leadership tool, but it's really, am I a negative VUCA or am I a positive VUCA? And the idea here is getting back to the rise of humanness. Below the line is scarcity and lack. Above the line is where we get into what you would call the higher faculties of what humans are about. Now, I could just talk about this for 1 second.
Yeah.
It's important to understand that the success of the human race is that we're the only species that pushes the envelope. In other words, when we went to the moon, the astronauts only had one chance to push the button on the rover. If that rover didn't fire, they would have been stranded on the moon.
Right.
So in other words, we're the only species that says, I'll go to the moon. Oh, and there's about a very high chance I won't return. Well, let's do that, right?
Right.
And that's the higher faculties that we're talking about, that we want people to understand, that are within us, to really expand who we are, to really, push above those upper limits that we have, or to push beyond those, to take those big leaps, because that is absolutely necessary in an environment like this that moves this fast, exponentially fast, changing at this rapid speed. So, we want to encourage you to really learn these tools because they're super, super valuable.
Right. I think if there's one thing we learned today, it's uncertainty is where magic happens, right?
Absolutely.
The uncertainty of saying yes to your movie created, an amazing friendship between me, you, and Mike. Where I had to Google VUCA when they got in touch with me. I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I'm going to play with them because I love the mission, right?
but you understood it because as soon as we explained it, you said, "Oh, I've been in VUCA," because you had some amazing stories that were like, I've been there,
Yep.
I've been in the mess. One of the things that you're exactly right about is that it's a lot about our comfort zone, and we really have to understand that our infinite potential lies just outside the edge of our comfort zone.
Yes.
And that's really what's important. And to get there, you sometimes have to use some anti-fragile resilience, that kind of stuff.
And stay to the course, right? So thank you, Chris. What an electric ride. With all your insights, you sparked something in all of us. I know that somebody needs to hear Chris's story. So if you have a community member, if you've got, on your social media, share Chris's story, share this podcast, Together we grow more. Listen, we're all about scaling, building, monetizing your business. So if it's with Chris and his team, me and my team, we want to monetize smarter, scale faster, and sell higher, right? We've got a roadmap for you. This is your moment. So Chris, thank you for Thank you for your commitment to the future and the commitment in sharing your knowledge. You cut your head off and there's jewels there. Every time I talk to Chris, I've got pages of notes. He drops diamonds all the time. So let's power our profits together, build something unstoppable, follow along, stay plugged in, tag Chris right on social media, look up VUCA. It is incredibly powerful, simple way to help manage your teams, grow your business, right? And harness everything that's happening. Stay strong, stay big, and let's make it together. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Your Profits podcast. Let these building blocks from today's most successful industry leaders equip you with the necessary resources and tools to finally establish the highly profitable business of your dreams. Want to hear more? Listen to more episodes at www.poweryourprofitspodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. Now is your time to rise to the top of your game. So be sure to catch our next episode. Until next time.